A little girl was freezing to death in a snowstorm, alone, unseen, and nearly out of time. Just when everyone had given up, a canine dog broke protocol and ran straight into the wideout. What he did next wasn't training. It was instinct, love, and a real-life miracle. It started as a quiet winter afternoon in the small town of Crestwood. Light flurries dusted the streets. Children laughed as they built snowmen. But within an hour, the sky turned gray, winds howled through the trees, and the gentle flakes transformed into a blinding blizzard. The storm came faster than anyone expected. The news warned residents to stay inside. Roads were being shut down. Visibility dropped to near zero. Streetlights flickered under the weight of snow, and the town slowly fell into silence. But somewhere out in that storm, a little girl, no older than 6, was lost. She had wandered from the neighborhood park just before the snow picked up, chasing after a squirrel, her stuffed teddy bear bouncing in her arms. No one saw where she went. By the time her absence was noticed, the streets were white and empty. As the temperature plummeted and night fell, the situation turned dire. First responders scrambled, but the roads were icing over. The girl was out there somewhere, in the cold, in the dark, in a storm that showed no mercy. No one knew where to look, no one. Except one dog. Inside a modest home on the edge of Crestwood, panic had set in. She was just at the park. She had her pink coat and her bear. She's only 6, the dispatcher remained calm, but the urgency was clear. A code amber was issued. Officers were dispatched. Neighbors bundled up and searched with flashlights, calling her name into the wind. But snow now covered every trace of her footsteps. The streets had turned into a white maze, erasing her trail completely. Emily's father stood on the porch, frozen with fear, staring into the storm like it might swallow them whole. "She's scared of the dark," he whispered. "She won't survive this cold." As the hours dragged on, hope began to dim. Emergency crews were delayed by jackknifed trucks and black ice. Medics were put on standby, unsure of what they'd find, if they found her at all. Then came a call over the radio. "We're bringing in K9 support." It was a long shot, but their last shot. In conditions like these, only one nose stood a chance of finding her before it was too late. Officer Ramirez pulled up in his SUV, headlights barely cutting through the wall of snow. In the back seat sat his partner, Shadow, a seasoned German shepherd with years of search and rescue under his belt. Shadow sat alert, ears perked, sensing the tension in the air. Ramirez met briefly with the search coordinator. "We've got a 6-year-old girl, missing for over 3 hours. She was last seen near the park. Conditions are getting worse." Without hesitation, Ramirez opened the back door. "Find the girl, Shadow," he said softly. Shadow leapt out, nose already working the frozen ground. His tail stiffened. Ramirez clipped the leash and followed close behind. Snow whipped around them, but Shadow moved with purpose, sniffing for any trace of the little girl. The team fanned out behind them. But Ramirez knew the truth. If she was going to be found tonight, it would be because of Shadow. Shadow moved with determination, his nose close to the snow-covered ground, weaving between trees and street signs as if reading a hidden map. Ramirez followed closely behind, eyes scanning the dim landscape, radio clipped to his shoulder, crackling with updates. No sign near the creek, negative by the schoolyard, came the voices. But Shadow was locked in. Suddenly, he stopped, ears perked, nose flaring. A faint trail. He barked once, tugging the leash hard. Ramirez knew the signal. "You've got something, boy." Shadow let out a low whine, then surged forward, pulling them down a narrow path behind the park. The snow was deeper here, untouched. Shadow led them through icy thickets, over a frozen footbridge, past down tree limbs weighed heavy with snow. The wind howled, visibility nearly gone, but Shadow didn't slow down. Then, without warning, he broke free of the leash. "Ramirez!" shouted, but Shadow disappeared into the white, charging forward like he knew exactly where to go. Ramirez ran after him, heart pounding, slipping in the snow. The storm swallowed the world around him. And then, through the haze, a bark. Sharp, urgent. Shadow had found something. Somewhere ahead, in the heart of the storm, a miracle was waiting to be uncovered. Ramirez followed the sound of barking, boots crunching through knee-deep snow. His flashlight flickered against the white void until it landed on a shape, small, fragile, huddled on a frost-covered bench beneath a broken bus stop shelter. That it was her. Emily. She sat curled tightly, her little arms wrapped around a soaked teddy bear. Her lips were blue, eyelashes frozen. She didn't move. Shadow was beside her, whining softly, nudging her face with his snout. Then, without hesitation, the K9 curled his body around hers, shielding her from the wind. Ramirez dropped to his knees. Emily, he called gently, pulling off his gloves to check for a pulse. Faint, but there, she's alive, he shouted into his radio. Get medics here now. Shadow remained wrapped around her, refusing to move. He didn't need a command. His instincts had taken over. In the middle of a storm, he became her warmth, her shield, her hope. Ramirez wrapped his arms around Emily's frozen body, cradling her as gently as he could. Her skin was ice cold, her breath shallow and irregular. Shadow stayed pressed against her, his warm body a barrier between her and the deadly cold. Snow kept falling, covering them in a white blanket as if the storm itself was trying to bury them. ETA on medics? Ramirez barked into his radio, voice tight with urgency. 5 minutes out, stay with her, came the reply. 5 minutes felt like forever. Ramirez removed his jacket and wrapped it around Emily, whispering, Stay with us, sweetheart. Help's coming. He glanced at Shadow, who didn't move an inch. The dog's eyes stayed fixed on her face, ears twitching with every shallow breath she took. Then, flashing red lights appeared through the snow. Paramedics jumped out, rushing to the scene. They loaded Emily onto a stretcher, checking vitals, wrapping her in thermal blankets. Ramirez tried to follow, but Shadow lunged forward first, refusing to let her go. Let him ride, one medic said, opening the door. He kept her alive. The ambulance sped away, sirens screaming through the storm. Inside, Shadow sat beside her, watching over her like the guardian he was born to be. News of Emily's rescue spread quickly through Crestwood. The storm still raged, but for a moment, everything stood still. Neighbors huddled by their radios and phones, praying for the little girl's survival. At the hospital, doctors worked urgently to stabilize her body temperature. Her heartbeat was weak, her limbs dangerously frostbitten. But there was something else. Shadow wouldn't leave her side. He sat just outside the ER doors, refusing food, refusing rest. Every time the automatic doors opened, he lifted his head, ears twitching, eyes scanning for her. Nurses tried to move him. Ramirez tried too. Nothing worked. He stayed planted, guarding the entrance as if it were his post. A passing nurse took a photo. The loyal K9, drenched and still shivering, waiting alone in the snow. That image hit social media like lightning. People across the country began sharing it with one word in common: hero. 2 days passed. Emily remained unconscious in the pediatric ICU, her small body fighting a silent war against the cold that had nearly claimed her. Machines beeped steadily beside her bed, while doctors watched over her with guarded hope. Shadow never left the hospital. He paced the hallway outside her room, nose pressed to the glass. Ramirez brought food, but Shadow barely touched it. He wasn't hungry. He was waiting. And then, on the morning of the 3rd day, a miracle happened, and the world now knew who to thank. The hero with 4 paws and a heart of gold. A week later, the town held a ceremony in the town square. Children waved handmade signs. The mayor pinned a small medal of bravery on Shadow's collar while the crowd applauded. Emily stood beside him, holding his leash with pride. N01 threw around the word miracle lightly, but in this case, it felt exactly right, because Shadow didn't just find a girl that night. He brought a town back to life.